Welcome back, everybody, to the Unacceptables live streaming podcast. Special thanks to Jay Shaw. He'll be joining me here in a minute for the brilliant intro with the graphics and the music there. Feeling pretty patriotic. And we have a spicy show for you guys tonight. This might get us a strike. Jay, are you ready to come in here? All right, let's bring Jay in. Jay, come on in here. Everybody, this is Jay Shaw, the man, the myth, the legend. Jay, how you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm good.
Right on. We have a spicy show here for you tonight, folks. In particular, we're going to touch on a couple of things. Now, I think maybe how are you guys doing tonight? How's everybody feeling? Are you feeling
By a round of
okay, or-
applause, how do you feel?
Where's my applause track? I wonder if that would come through in the stream. Jay, tell me if you hear this. I got a little applause track here. Let's see. Can we hear this? Does anybody hear this?
Negative.
Nope.
Negative. Dead airspace.
Oh,
Keep working on it.
well.
We'll get it.
I will figure that out for us at some point to make our stream just that much better. Just a laugh track and an applause track. Because you're
then we could be like Biden's State of the Union address and have everything just choreographed.
Wasn't that something? So that's one of the things we're going to talk about tonight. We had bumbling Joe Biden address the State of the Union in the U.S. And I mean, if you were unfortunate enough to actually have to suffer through it, you would have noticed that I think it is in his second point, his Adderall cocktail wore off, and then he starts to slur his words. And I have a little bit of that. Jay, I guess I'll throw this up here, and then we're going to talk about what we thought of the State of the Union just in general. But everybody, just catch the slurs here. They're this is about 2 minutes after I noticed he was A, off script, and B, no longer coherent. Here we go.
To schools. We must finally hold social media companies accountable for experimenting they're doing running children for profit. It's time to pass bipartisan legislation to stop big tech from collecting personal data on our kids and teenagers online, ban targeted advertising to children, and impose stricter limits on the personal data that companies collect on all of us. Third, let's do more to keep this nation's one truly sacred obligation to equip those we send into harm's way and care for them and their families when they come home. Job training, job placement for veterans and their spouses as they come to return to civilian life.
Jay, I guess apparently you've got feedback coming through on your end there.
Oh, my bad. There we go. That should fix it.
There. Yeah, okay, I think that's better. Yeah, it sounds
Sorry
better
about that, everybody. My bad.
Yeah, no problem. So there we had Joe. He was talking about. I almost want to play that again. Just if you guys don't mind, give me 1 second. Here, let's do this again. Just watch the first part here where he talks about what he's doing for kids.
To schools. We must finally hold social media companies accountable for experimenting they're doing running children for profit.
Running children for profit. There's no way that was actually what he was supposed to say in his speech. And if you guys watched
Joe, it kind of sounded like you were on a CB radio. Did I hear a niner in there?
That's when you knew his Adderall wore off for sure.
Yeah.
And it just got worse from there. I have a few more clips, and I wasn't able to compile them all because it's quite a bit to go through and to dissect the little parts, because he would go from somewhat coherent to seemingly a president to just an insane geriatric in like a sentence. So it's hard to put the clips together when they're like 10 seconds, everything changes. So I've been struggling with that.
I mean, even if you could extrapolate the information that he was attempting to communicate and convey, even if you were to properly be able to extrapolate that, and that's almost on the bordering on translation, really. If you got all that information, then you'd have to go, oh, so those are Republican talking points. So you're against social media monitoring and tweaking with everybody's stuff and snooping on kids and all this, and then the next morning, all of his little friends in the Democratic Party are hard at work making sure that the social media doesn't pay the price for what they did. So it's like, well, that I don't really know why you'd put that in there when when you're literally going to like show the world what a lie it is within like 12 hours. It's pretty foolish. I don't know. I don't get it. But what are you gonna do?
Well, I mean, look at who it's coming from. I mean,
Yeah.
let's be real here. It's not confusing at all to me because look at where it's coming from.
Mhm.
We'll talk about it in another stream, and then I've just noticed here, Jay, in the stream that our
Without dumb
chat.
fucking voters,
Mhm.
that would be political suicide would occurred. But because there's enough dumb fucking people who are just watching the New York Times and literally taking it verbatim as Canon, as Kane, canon. Without that, they wouldn't do that. But it really speaks to how little respect they have for their voters. Like, just how
Well,
stupid are you people? Let's do an experiment here.
Well, they're literally ballot harvesting and vote harvesting. So they'll go door to door with a piece of paper and say, "Here, sign this." And they know their voter base is so stupid that they'll look at that and just sign it without barely having read it. Or they might say, "Here, Joe Biden, sign this." Don't know what he stands for, but he's going to address this particular concern I have, so I'll sign this. And that's how dumb and that's what they've done is gone door to door and get these people to sign. That's how they get their votes. And that's them preying on the fact that their voter base is, slightly smarter than a frog.
Yeah.
And that's not saying much.
If that.
Well, and I love frogs, guys. Don't get me wrong. And actually, I've met frogs that are likely smarter than Joe Biden.
Yeah, I mean, frogs have found a way to be asexual and still reproduce, which is the Democrats haven't come up with a way that we can all become gender species, but they haven't figured out how we're not going to population crash out of that. So yeah, dumber than a frog.
They can't even define what a woman is. And since we don't have the chat working, Jay, I've noticed the chat's not working. I don't know if you can fix that from your end, but the Rabbit Hole Guild chat account isn't working. However, I do see the chats from my end here. And Erica asks, where's the staff, Jay? That's what she wants to know is where's the staff? And
it's in the garage.
It's in the garage. Just like the other places I had the bodies.
Like, I can't sit here like on camera with the staff like looking, "You shall not pass." Like,
I mean, it could, Jay. We could work that into a bit, though. I mean, really, I could run with that. And as a matter of fact, I'm kind of excited to maybe turn that into a bit. That could be a future segment. Who knows? We could get up to anything in this fucking stream, and it doesn't really matter because nobody watches it anyway. So we're just entertaining ourselves at this point. And Erica, and once in a while Heather, and some other unknown person that didn't identify themselves that was watching last time.
Okay, so I'm sending out a test chat. Except I didn't spell test correctly. Oh, maybe
it shows me that. However, for some reason, I don't have that from my end. I wonder how I think I have to. I'll figure that out later.
And then Erica said test. Yeah.
Oh,
you mean inside of Restream? You're not seeing
inside of Restream. I'm not seeing it. I see it from my end on the actual like in YouTube, but I don't see it from Restream, which is kind of stupid. Technical difficulties as usual.
If they just added, like you say, the beta for TikTok, and they may have unwittingly created some glitches.
Yeah, well, I mean,
I mean,
TikTok's
TikTok
a
and Chinese balloons and
yeah.
bloody.
That's what almost took the words. That's not exactly what I was going to say, but I was going to allude to something like, yeah, well, TikTok at this point, I don't trust them as far as I can throw a Chinese weather balloon, which is not very far because apparently they're the size of 2 school buses or 3. So that's a pretty big thing, and I don't think I can even get my hands on that to throw it, especially not from 65,000 feet. So we opened with something I hope was kind of fun for you guys. A number of years ago, there was a conflict between the Western democracies, let's say, as a whole, and Iraq. And the whole premise to that was basically to stop Saddam Hussein from having weapons of mass destruction. That was the fear. That is what, we as a country in the US and, the UK and all these, that is what we went on and why we invaded Iraq. And, at the end of World War II, all the nations got together and said, because a lot of fucked up shit happened in World War II. And if you're not a history buff, let's just suffice it to say that there was some fucked up shit that happened, and it was fucked up enough that all the nations got together and said, whoa, dude, that was a bit much. Maybe we ought to have some rules behind warfare. Maybe there ought to be things that we shouldn't do, like, mustard gas, sarin gas, things like this. Maybe we shouldn't have biological weapons. Maybe we shouldn't have chemical warfare because that's pretty nasty. That's pretty crazy. It got crazy.
Or
And
involuntary human experimentation.
well, that was another thing that was in the Nuremberg trials, but we're not even addressing that right now. I'm just simply referring to one small part of that, which was all these nations agreeing that there was a code of conduct when it came to engaging another country in war. So rules of engagement were created. War crimes were invented at that point. So they decided and created legislation behind what would become war crimes. And a lot of units have a funny saying that they'll keep from the public, but it goes something like, it's not a war crime the first time. And that's a bit of a joke, and so I'm trying to lighten the mood a little bit here, but I just want to touch on this because there is a war going on right now. It's a proxy war being fought against Russia by NATO, basically, by all of Western democracy. And it's not a full-on war because, for one, Russia's a nuclear superpower, and they're not a country to be fucked with. And for another, Ukraine is not a NATO member and not an EU member just yet, although they're talking about it and pushing for it. And it looks like they're going to become an EU member, and that changes the game. However, this is why it's a proxy war at this point, because they can't legally be in a war to defend Ukraine because they have no legal jurisdiction as far as NATO is concerned or anything else. Now,
and it's just a border dispute. That's really actually what it is.
And their history and their geography is so complicated, and it changes like almost on a yearly basis that this shouldn't come as a shock to anybody. I mean, this has been going on since long before we worried about Iraq or anything else. So, but I digress. My point here is this. You can be guaranteed that if Russia, who was the aggressor in this case, or not, depends on how you look at it, was doing anything that could be identified immediately, clearly identified as a war crime, that we would be fed that on the mainstream media constantly, and that they would not relinquish that position, and that would justify probably an escalation of a conflict. So if they were able to find there was a rumor that Russia bombed or set fire to a nuclear facility so that it would cause a nuclear meltdown. Well, in fact, it was Ukraine troops that set fire to that, not Russia. And they debunked that right away. They also made certain allegations that there were bioweapons labs in Ukraine. And that was part of the reason for Russia bombing them. And they bombed a bunch of areas that were labs. And nobody's accepted that or not. That's something we can't confirm. Or, I mean, we can't physically confirm, but I'm pretty sure it's true.
And we've got a lot of video that's already been seen, like prior to now, even of the fact that a lot of people within the Ukrainian military are treating this like this counter strike on Russia as an ethnic cleansing. So, what do you think is going to happen to those Russian-speaking people, who are a big chunk of the Ukrainian population, when if Russia leaves? You know, you're going to get a genocide. You guarantee that. You know, and and that's just prior to what I suspect you're going to show us.
Well, and so that's where we're leading to. We were deployed in Iraq to find Saddam Hussein's weapons of mass destruction. We went after what's his name? Assad out of Syria. What's Assad's name?
Oh, I can't remember it.
Either way, over a rumor of chemical weapons. It turned out not to be true in both cases. There were no weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, and there were none in Syria. But they deployed an awful lot of resources and killed an awful lot of people just on the hunch that was the case. And currently, we're backing a country, Ukraine, and they're doing this kind of stuff. So I'm going to show this first clip here. I didn't really want to do these clips. I debated on these clips on showing you guys this stuff tonight, because later one of the clips in particular is very disturbing. But I feel like this needs to be seen, and nobody in mainstream media is touching this. You won't find this anywhere else, so far as I can tell. I did a lot of work just to get this footage. So I'm going to roll this first bit, and we'll talk about what it is after we watch this. It's very quick, so we'll be right back.
За Солідар доведеться відповісти, суки.
Оце все полетить на ваші хворі бошки, підари.
Шаман, 63-я бригада, красунчик. Дякуємо за бекап. Почніше дай! Готуйтеся, хробачня.
Вам сподобається.
Що мутите, хлопці?
Мальфара мутимо. Добре.
Добрий день, everybody. Мадяр на зв'язку. Хочу подякувати всім дотичним до проєкту створення народного дрону камікадзе Мольфар. Птахи Мадяра широко почали застосовувати її при виконанні бойових завдань. Окремо хочу подякувати нашому інженеру Сашу Туркову, відомому в наших колах як Рама. Подякувати інженеру Шаману 63-ї бригади за
You guys get the idea there. So what you just saw is a whole display of chemical weapons, most likely nerve agents, and drones that they are proudly displaying that they use to deploy these, which is a war crime currently. And so if you are currently backing Ukraine against Russia, you are backing war criminals. Just bear that in mind. And these things were outlawed and made war crimes for a reason. I mean, you have to understand that all these warmongering nations all came together and agreed that they shouldn't use these things because they're so horrible that it's just the most inhumane thing you could ever do to somebody. And you've got these gentlemen proudly displaying like stockpiles of chemical weapons. And he was going on to give credit to and thank the 63rd Battalion for supplying them, and going on to thank the munitions expert of the 63rd Battalion, which is an engineering battalion in the Ukraine. You know, and they're doing it right out in the open. This is all over the internet, if you look in the right places. And nobody's saying a word about this. You can't tell me that there's not somebody in mainstream media who's seen, not anybody in mainstream media has seen this footage and been like, oh, no, that can't be real, because it's real. And you know, some of you might say, well, how do you know they're Ukrainian? Well, they're speaking Ukrainian. Ukrainians speak a different language than Russians. And if you watch the translation of that is presented, we were unable to capture that for our purposes here. But if you watch the translation of that, he's quite clear that he's targeting Russians quite happily with the ordnance provided to him by the 63rd Battalion of the Ukraine Army. So there's another little bit here. Here's another, just to give you an idea of what they're doing here and the actual size of this operation. Here you go.
Чоловічище! Бережіться, хробачі пукани. Мольфари до вас прямують. Честь! Давайте так, щоб не все показувати. Холодильник я показувати не буду, ну хіба одне відділення. Ну добре, ще одне. Хто тут? Правильно. 2 десятка пуканів.
Yeah, so he's laughing at the end, laughing at the fact that he's manufacturing ways that are war crimes to kill his enemies.
Mm-hmm.
And
While listening to the pop music of a 12-year-old girl.
Yeah. Laughing hysterically about the fact that he is about to commit a war crime. And this last bit here, I debated quite heavily on showing this, and I want to show it for context. This is a very stringent viewer discretion. This is disturbing footage, and if you have a weak stomach or you're easily disturbed or even not easily disturbed by things, please look away. Make sure your kids leave the room. No kid should be watching our stream anyways. But just please, this is disturbing footage. And this is what they're doing with the chemical weapons you just saw. All right, here we go.
Скінчилось кохання, скінчилося все, заглядає сонце у вікна осель, там люди щасливі та сумно мені, мабуть, утоплюся, спочину на дні, піду втоплюся у річці глибокій, шукати стануть, не скоро знайдуть, ти будеш плакать, спливатимуть роки, мене до смерті не зможеш забудь, піду втоплюся у річці глибокій, шукати стануть, не скоро знайдуть, ти будеш плакать, спливатимуть роки, мене до смерті не зможеш забудь. Життя, як той камінь на груди лягло, зроблю, що надумав, Марічці на зло. Прощай, мамо люба, і тату прощай, учи.
Yeah, you know what? I don't want to watch any more of that. And I don't imagine any of you do either. What you saw there was a drone dropping the initial nerve agent ordnance, and it struck the first guy quite heavily. You could see he was dying right away, and the other guy was trying to pull him away and save him. He started to die as well, and you could see he was dying already. And then the drone dropped. I guess they felt that wasn't good enough. They had another drone fly in and drop another bomb of this nerve agent on this guy. And you know, I've heard it said it's like dying from inside of your brain out. And what you just saw there is incredibly disturbing, incredibly graphic, and I only played it for the specific reason to understand the gravity of the situation. We're having a country commit war crimes, and we have NATO, our individual governments, backing them. And so what you could do about this right now is call your maybe your local MP, your provincial MP, whoever it is, every day and say, I do not support committing war crimes.
Yeah.
Because I don't think enough of our governments know about this. And take this footage and show it to anybody you can. The world should see this, and start saying that you don't support funding a nation that's committing war crimes.
Yeah.
Because they're taking your tax dollars and supporting a criminal nation, a nation that up until this conflict was considered the most corrupt nation on the planet. They still are, very clearly, but now we're supporting them, and these are the things they're doing. And again, we invaded several countries on the premise that they may have chemical weapons and how bad they are, and that they're a war crime to use them or to possess them, so we should go and invade them. And now we're supporting a war in which they're using chemical weapons against their enemy, and nobody's saying a fucking word about it.
Yeah, it's typical. Cherry picking values, right? It's like this is our value. This is what we believe. We'll never back down off of that. We go, well, except in this case because it's against Russia, and it's different. We used to fight a Cold War against them, so we have to hate them.
Well, but again, it wasn't about weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. It was about oil rights. It was about money.
Yeah. And this is too.
The convenient thing is that in this case, they know they can't say that Russia possessed the chemical weapons and did the war crime, because there's no way they could convince. Like, they're not stupid enough to suggest this was a psyop or whatever, where it's actually Russians killing their own people with chemical weapons, because that would be really fucking bad for morale. Russia wouldn't do that. They wouldn't put a video out in public killing their own people with a nerve agent to say, here, we're trying to gain sympathy. They're not that fucking stupid.
No.
So for those of you there to suggest that's a possibility, it's not a possibility, because they're not that stupid. And that was very clearly Ukrainian they were speaking. So yes, this is a war crime on video. And please stop supporting this war against Russia by the West, because it could get us all fucking killed.
Support a peace treaty.
Support anything. But
support negotiations. It's time to negotiate.
And it's time to speak up. It's time to talk to any politician. You can call them every day, email them every day, the house, like anybody you can get a hold of every day, and say,
or the Geneva Convention.
Exactly. Stop sending my tax dollars to support war criminals.
Yeah.
And I'm saying this out loud to anybody that'll hear it, and I'll play this for anybody that'll hear it. I don't support my current government or their stance at all. And especially not when it comes to this. Yeah.
No, it's pretty grotesque. It's all wrong, and the only reason they're getting away with it is because they're playing on the fact that people don't actually they learned a bit of history in school that omitted a lot. And people didn't understand the context of that history. They just understood certain events that went on, but they don't understand the underlying contributors, the whys, the wherefores. Like for instance, that when the Soviet Union collapsed, Ukraine took a great deal of land that had always been Russian territory. Everybody there speaks Russian and is Russian Orthodox. And Ukraine kind of capitalized on the fall of the Soviet Union. And we've established a precedent since the end of World War I that we kind of, when it comes to border disputes and things, we generally draw the lines ethnically, And so in this case, you would say, well, these people are clearly Russian, those people are clearly Ukrainian. Here's where the border goes, and we move on. But in this case, because Russia has so much oil, because Russia can kind of dictate oil prices in Europe, that's exactly the reason why we're ignoring that whole point of view, and why we're supporting a paid actor, and we're supporting a military that's full of and I'm not even being facetious, and I'm not over exaggerating this. There's a lot of Nazis in the Ukrainian army. And I'm saying Nazis, and I mean, Yeah, and I mean it. They are Nazis, like literally fascist Nazis. They literally want everyone who isn't an Aryan, Slavic Aryan dead. You know, like it's yeah, and it's a really it's a really stupid thing to support. And you know, and it's not. I don't blame everybody because you know what they like I say they just omit the parts of history in your social class that would allow you to ask questions when something like this comes up. That's it. It's easy. It's a very simple recipe, and they've done it over and over throughout history.
Interesting. I'm just it looks like we might have people getting kicked out of our stream here. Oh no. No, we're good. There you
Okay.
go. Interesting. I'm just sorry. All right. I'm just figuring stuff out for people. I'm working all kinds of angles here, folks. I am a magician at some points, and you guys don't even see it. You don't even know what we're doing here in the background. You have no idea. It's some magical stuff.
So that being said, so that is one thing, and I will say this also. Byron Donaldson did say yesterday in a historic broadcast. He explained to people he has an office. He's in New York's 6th district, so he's got an office as a member of like what we would have as a member of parliament. That's what he is, Congress. And you know, he said, yeah, I get a lot of communications into my office, right? And I cannot answer every communication. I have a staff, and they don't tell me when one person emails me that they're unhappy about something. When 10 people do, then they send me an email. And when 100 people do, then they say, hey, you have to address this. There's a lot of people who give a fuck about it. And that's how he deals with things. You know, if you, I understand that it's very difficult to empathize with a politician. It's not an easy thing to do because
You don't say.
that profession has been turned into a bit like it preferences crooked people for sure. But if you look at it this way, and if there are indeed some reasonably good people who actually care in politics, how do you suppose they're supposed to take on your agenda if you don't fucking tell anybody that that's your agenda? Because I tell you, your member of parliament is not on YouTube watching the comments section. They're not going on to TikTok and looking at the comments to videos. They don't have time for that. You know, there's 8 hours. There's 8 hours in a day. Like, you know, and so you have to communicate. You have to. That's part of democracy. It's not autopilot. It doesn't function that way. You have to participate.
And so we've made this analogy before in the stream. I'll do it again just for everybody who missed. Maybe you guys missed a stream one time. Who knows? Either way, if a mechanic says you need to change the oil in your car so that it runs well, and you stop checking the oil and you stop changing the oil in your car and it stops running, you shouldn't be surprised. It's the same thing with democracy. If you don't change the oil, if you don't, make sure that all the servicing's done, and you don't do the work, then it's going to fail and it's going to stop running. It's going to seize, and you're going to end up where you are right now, which is lacking freedom, lacking the ability to decide for yourself what you may or may not see on the internet. That's called Bill C-11, by the way. Look that up. And I'll do just a little bit. I'm getting off topic here, but for those of you that watch this stream, there's a place in Winnipeg called Camp Hope. It's actually a place in Winnipeg. And the plan for Camp Hope this year was that would be where they would have a reuniting of, all the people from the Freedom Convoy in Camp Hope. Now, if you go on Google Maps right now and look up Camp Hope, it has been deleted from Google Maps. That really happened. And this is the start of C-11. So a place that exists, Camp Hope is a place, and previously to just a few days ago, you could find it on a map on Google. Now they've deleted it so that they have basically indicated that they're going to delete the existence of a place so that you can't find it to gather with your friends. That's what C-11 is doing for you. So they may have told you it was about online bullying, and they may have told you it was about, taking precautions about people saying slanderous things online and racist things online. It wasn't about that at all. It was about controlling what you will see and what you can gather for information so that you can't fight back, so that you don't really know what's going on. So just imagine, go right now on Google and look up Camp Hope. Good luck, because they've deleted it from existence.
Yeah. And on the American
There you
side,
go.
in the last week, 2 Republicans were shot and killed on separate occasions by vigilantes who are unidentified. They know that these people were the targets. They can pretty much show that the one lady was shot. She arrived at home from her office. She was shot in her car.
Yeah,
Another guy
her car rolled
Yeah.
down to the end of the road, down the hill, and
Yeah.
slammed into or rolled into a couple other parked cars. And
And so the people who perpetrated that, Antifa, we all know it's Antifa, are not being investigated with the use of, the deep state that the United States has sort of launched against the people of not just the United States, but pretty much the world. And they have been doing Snowden told us that many years ago. It's not just the United States they're doing this to. So, but they ignore when Antifa goes and shoots 2 Republicans because it fits with their, oh, that's okay. That benefits us. Cool. So we have these government agencies that are there to protect politicians the way that the country runs, as long as they're in the right party, But if they're in the wrong party, well, whatever. People get shot. No big deal. It's opposite world, like it's absolute Twilight Zone stuff. Like, and we see this happening in real time.
It's bizarro world for sure.
And I mean, at least in the States, they've only got, a little over a year left. We've still got a ways to go before we have any kind of change of the guard, unless something happens with the NDP to where they have some respect for their voters and change things. Now that being said, there is a fairly substantial movement and a petition that now has upwards of 3.5 million signatures, and I'll provide a link to that in the description of this video, which is a petition to allow people to vote non-confidence, allow the citizens to vote non-confidence. Which is not currently something that Canadian citizens can do. It's Parliament that can do that. But this growing petition is targeting the citizens' rights to have, essentially, it would be a referendum, and that would be a very good thing. And I would think that was I was always shocked that didn't exist prior to. Like I always thought, like, why can't a democratic nation's people, the tax-paying citizens, unelect somebody? Why can't they be impeached by the citizens? I always thought that was a little bit fakakta. I mean, yeah, we'd have a lot of elections, but
it is a bit odd, especially in the States, where they are quite clear that they want their citizens to be able to, sort of defend themselves from a tyrannical government. Example gratia, the Second Amendment laws. So it is quite strange to me as well, Jay, that they can't just say, hey, listen, this person's not doing it. Should be obviously by a fairly unanimous consent. But I'm quite surprised they don't have a law in place that they can just step in and say, get the fuck out of office. You're doing nothing what you said you were going to do. And in fact, you've done the opposite, and you've ruined our lives and ruined our economies and started 4 wars we didn't support and spent all our tax dollars. That should be something that's allowed. And very obviously, it's never been even put forth as a motion in any country, because that would mean politicians were held accountable. And none of them ever want that. So that will never happen at least in this form of, what we consider democracy, which at this point, it doesn't even resemble democracy. At least in Canada, it does not even resemble democracy. And and I want to talk about that real quick, Jay, if I could.
Yeah.
You guys remember just over a year ago now, there was a gathering of people in Ottawa that had a certain issue with the government. And there was an inquiry, and during that inquiry, there was citizens of Ottawa that, that claimed they had PTSD from horns honking, and there was a bunch of stuff that happened that was very clearly terrifying for them, like people, having bonfires and feeding the homeless and bouncy castles and partying and music. It was obviously very terrifying for these citizens of Ottawa. So much so, in fact, Jay, I don't know if you knew this, and this might be a bit of a surprise for you, but the federal government thought so highly of Rams Ranch and the citizens of Ottawa that stood up. Rams Ranch is an Antifa organization who we know a lot about. That stood up to these protesters, that they commemorated them with a plaque. Jay, look at this bad boy right here. Let's see if I can bring this up here for you. No, not that one. That one. You got a plaque there?
Yeah, you bet.
You see that? Okay. So I'm going to read this for everybody who can't read it because the writing's a bit small. But this is what they named the Battle of Billings Bridge, which is a fucking joke because it's not a battle. It never was a battle. It's an insult literally to everybody who's ever been in a battle, but I won't get started on that. So it says, at this spot on February 13th, 2022, everyday citizens and Ram Ranch Resistance, who is an Antifa organization, Antifa, members peacefully stood in the way of those who had trampled citizens' rights to free movement and free expression. Anybody see the irony in that?
Oh yeah, it's one of the most ironic things that's ever been chiseled.
And so exactly. And this plaque commemorates the ordinary people who had something extraordinary when their leaders would, or who did something extraordinary when their leaders would not. I submit to those of you listening and to anybody who would like to watch this later, use this as a clip, that none of you know what a battle is, and that the people that were there protesting were standing up when their leaders would not.
Mm-hmm.
And I also would like to add that anybody who can free that plaque from where it's held and send it to me, I would like it, and I'll pay heavily for it. Just putting that out there.
Yeah. What people don't understand, liberal-minded people will think that Antifa is a liberal organization. It's not. It's an anarchy, they call themselves an anarchist organization. Now, I recommend any episode of Michael Malice, and you will find that is not, by definition, what an anarchist believes. Anarchists are nonviolent people who believe in a transition towards a smaller government and not a revolution. Antifa wants a revolution. They don't support the Liberal government in any way. They're just capitalizing on dissent in order to rally a bunch of people to do evil things and burn things and do a lot of damage. In fact, the damage that was done to Philadelphia alone, the final toll on that is $600 million. It's one city. Minnesota, $1.1 billion of damage. That's what they do. And they're not doing that to get back at anybody. They're not doing that to forward Sleepy Joe's cause. They're doing that to destroy the country that they live in. The concept of a nation, because they want one world. They want a single government for the world, and they call that anarchy, which is not, because Marxism is not anarchy at all.
So that's what I was about to say. It's so funny. Their name and their actions are two different things. Antifa stands for anti-fascists.
Mm-hmm.
And they're calling people who are protesting their government and their fascist overreach fascists.
Mm-hmm.
And they want all of the world to abide by their decree and their values. And that, by definition, is fascism.
Mhm.
And they will use violence to get their wants and their needs and get their beliefs, supported. That is fascism by definition. So you call yourself anti-fascist, yet you use fascism as almost your sole tool for getting your point across. So I think your argument holds no water, sir, and we're all dumber for having listened to you say any of your words about fascism or anti-fascism. It's
Mhm.
ridiculous.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, yeah, it's ludicrous, and they're like, I mean, we're really lucky. We've been really lucky Antifa wise. We didn't get a lot of the, like, not near. We got plenty of it here, and it was supported by the Trudeau government, but we didn't get nearly what's going on in the States. There's been a lot of people hurt. They don't even have, like, they have a lot of places that don't have a police force unless they have a sheriff's department. Police departments in the States are in really bad shape. Sheriff's departments, not so much, because they're elected. People
Right.
elect their sheriffs, but not city cops, not state cops. And they have taken one on the chin. All the good cops out there have just been absolutely disrespected for 4 or 5 years. And it's been supported by their government. It's pretty gross, and they're putting activist judges on the bench right now in Washington. One judge, Ho, who admitted that he was and this is a direct quote, he was a wide-eyed liberal who gets his energy to get up in the morning from how much he hates conservative people, and they're trying to put him on the bench as a judge.
Sounds like a nice guy.
Pretty gross. Like it's so Lenin.
Sounds
It's
like a
so
nice guy.
It's so Lenin and Stalin. It's not even funny. Like it is so Russia 1916. We shouldn't be afraid of the Russia across the ocean. We should be afraid of the Russia that's currently in the White House. Like that Marxism is much more dangerous, and that Marxism has drones. The old Marxism didn't, and they killed 120 million people. So, what do you think that the Biden administration could do if they went full Marxist? And yes, I say full Marxist in the way that people say full retard, because it's about the same thing.
Oh no, full retard is far more acceptable than full Marxism.
Yeah.
Jay, I'm gonna try something. This hasn't worked for us in the past, but I'm gonna try a little something here. I want to try and bring this up. Do you have my screen share there?
I've got picture.
Okay, you've got picture. All right. So this audio might not work. If it doesn't work, it was worth a shot.
Yeah, no audio.
No audio.
No audio.
That's a shame.
Yeah.
Well, it was worth a shot. For everybody who's watching here, I recommend go look up Raging Dissident. I think he's on Raging Dissident VI or II or something like that. Should be pretty easy to find. Look him up on Rumble. He had his regular Wednesday night stream last night, and he was on fire. The whole stream was rock solid, all of it. Every little bit of it. He covered, and that credit is due to Jeremy McKenzie, Mr. Raging Dissident himself, Daglon, for the videos that I just threw on here of the war crimes in Ukraine. I got that from his feed on Telegram, which is where you should all be joining us. Every stream at the bottom here, you'll see our subject matter. You'll also see our socials. And I have noticed that we've had some more viewers lately. However, none of you have gone onto Telegram and joined our Telegram page. So please go to the bottom here. You'll see it. It's t.me/Rabbit Hole Guild. Go join us on the Rabbit Hole Guild Telegram page so that we can keep you up to date and we can talk about things on Telegram we can't even talk about here in this stream. So you'll get the raw goods there. And there won't be any of the superfluous nannerings of Jay and I to go along with it. It'll just be the clips and the different posts.
Right on.
Could be a win.
All right. And so one piece of news I want to say is that gold is still on the way up. It hasn't flattened out yet. I don't expect it to anytime soon. Good news for you, Scott. Kraken did sign did sign an agreement with the FCC today.
Oh, they did.
They did. No details have been announced yet, but there is a deal between the FCC and Kraken involving their staking procedures.
Beautiful. And now is the time when I really need that Release the Kraken audio clip, and I don't have it because I didn't know you were going to tell me that. I did not know that Kraken had decided to try and reach an agreement with the FCC. So that's great. Great news for everybody who's trading on that app.
For crypto in general, anytime that you see the FCC sort of giving up ground in that making an agreement with a crypto company, it's a step in the right direction for crypto.
Absolutely, yeah.
Because not every time, but up until now, and I'm assuming in this case too, Kraken's always been great. They've always done independent audits. They've always had their audits specifically to say that every token that they have is backed and in existence. They're not printing funny tokens. They're not selling tokens they don't own. They're not, they've been completely above board the whole time. So it's really great for everybody. Cardano in particular, because their staking system is almost verbatim what Kraken is. So that means that they're good too. Ethereum's still in a bit of trouble with the way that their staking works. Ethereum may end up being a security, but that's fine too. Whatever. Ethereum's always been a cash grab anyway. So that's the kind of the good news in that direction. Some other good news, and I will bring up I'll bring up a video here for you guys that I wanted to chat with you about, and that is, hang on, can't quite see it. There we go.
To schools.
I also want to say too that,
but that's where programs like yours come in. Bobert was like, "Hey, Byron, you got to come in and do this podcast tonight." I said, "Whose podcast are we doing?" She's like, "Let me tell you about him. It's great." I said, "All right, cool. I'm in. I'm gonna do it."
Cool.
You have to do programming like this. I think that the way that our party has done messaging is you deal with the Washington Post, the New York Times, MSNBC, NBC, CBS, ABC. They hate your guts. You're going to get a hard interview. When Fox came along 30 years ago, Fox was like a revelation for the conservative movement and for the Republican Party. Just being honest, it was a revelation, right?
Yeah.
But because young people taking information on this thing at warp speed, because I got 3 kids, you look at their phones, they don't even watch TV anymore. So I try to tell my colleagues, I'm like, guys, don't get me wrong, doing interviews is cool, but there's a whole nother ecosystem, and it's not just doing it once. It's not just saying, oh, I went on, and this is no disrespect to Sean Hannity, love the dude, good dude, but it's not just doing a Hannity primetime hit. It's, are you in a rapid fire response, pushing narratives, pushing messages, what's actually happening, being able to explain the thing in 90 seconds. Like you don't have 20 minutes.
So that's Byron Donalds from the 6th District in New York. Last night from Congresswoman Bogart's office in the Capitol building. Pretty historic moment. That's the Tim Pool podcast crew was invited into Congress. The three of a crew of 4. They came in. They set up for a podcast, mics, video, etc. And they spent 3 hours talking to various Republicans who just kind of came in. Some of them were dressed in street clothes. Some of them were in suits. And they came in and said what they felt, unscripted, off the cuff. in the podcast interview fashion, which is you don't get to know what I'm going to ask, and etc.
Yep.
And like Byron Donald says, it gives them the opportunity to talk for longer than 90 seconds over a couple of hot talking points that they want to cover, and then it's over. And this is because what we're seeing is, and we've kind of been seeing this. We've seen Gates, Congressman Gates, on the Tim Pool podcast a few times. We've seen politicians on the Jordan Peterson podcast do long form, and Jordan Peterson's tougher on politicians than Tim Pool by far. Probably mostly that his IQ is about 50 points higher. That's not to say that Tim Pool's dumb either.
No,
but
Tim Pool's a smart guy, but Jordan Peterson's quite the intellect. You can't compare the two. And
world class. So this is the birth of change. This is change in action. We're actually seeing it. We're seeing where politicians are now bailing on the media that has failed you, and they're going to the people that you support. Tim Pool is fan supported. He doesn't have, he doesn't have a lot of sponsors. He'll have one or two at the beginning of the show. Most of those are usually actually products that the Timcast Corporation produces, but they're fan produced. They have memberships. It's $5 membership. I'd strongly recommend it. It's a great membership. For $5 a month, it's nothing for what you get out of it, especially if you're in the Virginia area, or the West Virginia area where their new studio is going to be located. Once they can get the HVAC on, they're having a real problem getting an HVAC company to come in. They say that they just can't get contractors to work, which is the end product of here's all this money, so that you don't want to work anymore, which is kind of what happened in Canada and the United States in some areas, and destroyed our supply chain and caused inflation. High demand, less people making the products, you then have less supply. Well, economics does its own thing. It's not as controlled as people think. And so, but this is I was really invigorated by that. It was a wonderful thing to see. That's podcasts winning. That's independent journalism winning. It's the death of the New York Times. It's the death of CNN. And this has been, people have been pointing this out. Jordan Peterson was one of the first who said in 2017.
That's right.
He said, "I don't think we have much to worry about with the mainstream media because they're dying. This is a death spiral." He called it. He said, "This is the death spiral, and you'll see it get worse and worse." And now we're seeing another level of escalation towards that end, and it's great.
Yeah, and they're just grasping at straws. They're literally taking non-stories and trying to make them into stories way harder than they ever did before. I mean, the mainstream media has always been, and I've been involved in stories that were reported on completely different than what actually happened, simply to get headlines. So, and so the mainstream media has been at this a long time. It's no secret. I think that people are opening their eyes to that more and more. And this is what Jay is talking about, and this is what we're referring to, is that the work that is being done by people like Tim Pool, or people like us, or people like Jeremy McKenzie, Raging Dissident, people like Joe Rogan, people like
Dave Rubin,
Dave Rubin, people like Barry Weinstein, like all these people that are doing this work, this is the time when it's apparently going to be recognized, and this is the time where it's actually going to be worthwhile, is now, and people are seeing that. And I had just one more thing I wanted to touch on. I don't know if you heard about this, but I'm going to bring this up here. So in Canada here, we had some students protesting the fact that their school had pornographic material in the school library, and they didn't feel that was appropriate for school-age students to be, taking out from the library. We're talking about, junior high kind of age kids. And they were arrested for protesting what was in disagreement with their religion. And I don't think I can actually bring this clip up again. This audio won't work. But I do have a funny meme here. So the kid was protesting. They were also protesting a trans triple X story time event that was being promoted at their school, and they didn't feel that this was appropriate for teenagers to be exposed to that are pretty impressionable. So here I'll just, can you see this here, Jay?
Yeah.
So here's my friend here, Animus of Diagolon. Here's his meme. So here's the kid who was protesting. I can't get the video up of his actual protest or arrest rather. But suffice it to say, this kid was protesting, and for what he felt was a justifiable protest, which was freedom of religion and freedom of expression. In both cases, were being trampled upon again. And now it takes cops in our country to arrest children who are protesting about school curriculum.
Mhm.
This is where we're at. None of these kids did anything violent. They weren't on private property. There were no laws broken at all whatsoever. And there was no statements made by any police agency to say that they were arrested for a certain thing other than, well, they actually didn't make a statement, of course. Why would they?
Mhm.
And so you've got kids being arrested for standing up for what they believe in. This kid, he's a Christian. God bless him. And in his faith, exposing children to pornographic material, especially children, is not acceptable. And his argument was that his opinion was that it's grooming children
Mhm.
and making them more comfortable with sexualization. And I can't say I disagree with the young men. And why is it to the point now where a group of 16-year-olds has more balls than most of the men in this country, and they're willing to put their asses on the line to be arrested for something they believe in?
Mhm.
I think that's the bigger question here. Why are we at this point? That's who we need to stand up for our rights and their beliefs when we won't. Well, I mean, not we. I think you and I, Jay, do a good job of trying to stand up for what we believe in every day. Long before we did the stream. However, we're to the point now in our society here in Canada where 16-year-olds are standing up for their rights and being arrested because adults won't stand up for their children's rights. And that's the sign of a very sick and very failing society.
Yep. And that's that's why that's why we have to have these dialogues, and you have to go out there and you have to preaching to the choir only goes so far. We can go amongst each other and we can argue the same points and prove the same already proven theory over and over again, validate each other over and over. But if we're not out there trying to wake other people up to it, and trying to bolster people so that they want to do something about it literally, then what are we doing? We're just sitting around having a circle jerk. It's got to go further than our team. It's not about the jersey right now. We need more people in our jersey. If that's the case, if it is jerseys, then we need more on our team.
Whatever vernacular, whatever vernacular analogy you want to use, it all works. It all makes sense. And I think that the bigger point here is that we need more people doing what these teenagers are doing more often. And sure, we sparked, us Canadians, us freedom-loving, fringe minority Canadians, sparked a movement that was global, where the rest of the world saw us stand up and they decided to do the same. They thought, well, you know what? Our government's doing the same thing here, so we're going to stand up. So yes, we did that. But then it's almost like we got lulled into a sense of complacency where we were like, we stood up, everybody else is standing up, so now we'll just see where this thing goes. But it doesn't just keep going on its own. You have to be present. You have to work on it like you would the engine of a hot rod.
Yeah.
You have to change the oil, you have to baby it, you have to grease the little parts of it so that you make sure that this hot rod keeps running at peak performance. And when you let your foot off the gas and it starts to fail a little bit, you don't have to ask why, you know why, because you didn't maintain it. You didn't keep the oil fresh. You didn't do the work. And this is what we need to do. We need to keep doing every day. So, sure, maybe some of you aren't comfortable trying to put together a live stream or a podcast. Don't do that, but support one. Share the information from our podcast or our live stream if you support it, or Tim Pool's. Share it with other people. Talk to people. Call your MPs. Tell them you don't support a country that is committing war crimes against people. Because no matter whether you believe that Ukraine is justified or Russia is justified, war crimes are war crimes for a reason. They're being committed by Ukraine on Russian soldiers, and that is not acceptable in today's day and age, period, no matter what side you stand on. We went to war over this, so God knows we should be completely supporting this being sanctioned in all senses. And there should be an investigation, and there should be, I mean, if this were any other country other than Ukraine, and this footage that you just saw tonight was available, the US would be already readying all of their great warships and all of their planes and all of their soldiers to go and invade that country and stop them from using chemical weapons on their citizens or against their enemies. Because this is a territorial dispute. Even if it wasn't, using chemical weapons is still a war crime. And so we have to be present to these things. We have to speak out about these things. We have to call our MPs, our provincial representatives, whoever it need be. Call them, pepper them.
Stand up on a bar stool at your local bar. If you go to a bar and everybody at that bar, your local bar, has the same opinions as you, realize that you're like one person standing up on a bar stool and saying something away from an actual assembly. You know, if you've got 8 people in a bar who hold that agreement, well, then you say, hey, why don't we meet at this time every week in this place and make a flyer, and we'll get together and we'll figure out something that we can do on a small level, at our local level. We can pressure our MP. We can pressure whoever is available to create change. You can do something as simple as that too. I mean, it doesn't have to be a lot of people. Like, it has to be a lot of people at the end of the day, but you don't have to take care of a lot of people. If you take care of 4, and there's like 2 billion of us that take care of 4 people, it's a lot.
That's a lot of people.
So,
and if you look at it on those terms, and that's a really good point, Jay, I'd like to promote this. Find your friends. Go on the Telegram page. Form your own Telegram group. Post your own links. Whatever you got to do, share the Telegram page with us. We'll join it as well. Whatever you got to do, find your friends, find your like-minded people, find your group, find your clan, and grow that clan and support each other. Because especially now, especially with the way the government's restricting our information and making places on a map disappear, so you can't gather there for a freedom festival, literally just celebrating the fact that we fought for freedom. They don't want you to do that because that would be bad for their narrative. So they've made that place on the map disappear. Because we didn't say anything about C11. We didn't do enough about C11. And they pushed it through. It got passed. So now they can censor the things you see and the things you hear. And I'm quite sure at some point we will get censored. And we'll have to start chasing apps and chasing platforms that won't allow the C11 to affect them. Rumble will not be affected by them for now.
Oh, I would take it. It'll be a long. I believe that the ownership group at Rumble has said they'll tie it up in court for years.
Well, but if a bill passes in our country, it doesn't matter what they do to tie it up for a lawsuit. If the bill passes, there's not really much they can do unless they get the bill changed. If
if the government wants to prosecute it, Rumble will fight the prosecution. right?
Right.
So
Gotcha.
that's another point is go to platforms that are supporting on that level. Go to Trump's, go to Truth Social too. I mean,
Yep.
Trump,
Gab Social's another good one.
Yeah.
Rumble, we will be. I feel like by Sunday, I'm hoping that we can stream to Rumble as well. I think theoretically we could stream from this platform to Rumble. We just have to work out the technical side of it.
Mhm.
Oh no, actually we can't yet.
No, we need
That's
the membership.
So we need a following on Rumble. If you're not following me on Rumble, Fringe Monkey 22 at Fringe Monkey 22. Fringe Monkey, Fringe for unacceptable fringe minority, and 22 for the year 2022. Fringe Monkey 22, go follow me on Rumble so that we can go and cast our stream on Rumble and build our following there, because we're going to get shut down at some point on YouTube, and I wouldn't be surprised if we get a strike after this stream here tonight, because that's some raw graphic footage, and we're saying a lot of things that we probably know better than to say, but I said fuck it tonight, and that's just why, part of the reason why I debated on some of this footage tonight and some of this discussion tonight.
Yeah, well, you don't know until you try. Right? Like,
Yeah.
That's it.
If we get a strike, then I think we have one more after that, and then we're done. But we'll find another way to get our message across either way, so it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
You can come at us, but we'll still keep going. It's the Hydra theory.
So yeah, and in closing, in keeping to the same, the other side of that coin too is that we can't have infighting. We cannot allow small differences in opinion between the group of us that are holding traditional, more conservative values. We can't let the little things get in the way. We cannot, if you believe in capitalism and not Marxism, then you can't hold it against people for trying to make money. That's capitalism. And things to that nature. We have to stay united, and that's something that's a point that Tim brought up today on Timcast, and kind of an apology to his fans that he did. He didn't want to cover the Eliza Blue story as it's kind of panned out to be, because he thinks it's a nothing burger and a distraction and silly. But enough people said, Tim, no, this has got to be a discussion. He said, okay. But he also said, we have to be united. We have to not have these little nitpicky arguments with each other, and stand united. Don't go around shit talking somebody in the conservative media who holds a slightly different view on capitalism than you. Don't do Crowder. I mean, I don't think anybody was wrong in the Crowder and Daily Wire thing. I don't see either one of them as the villain or the good guy in that situation. Everybody was looking out for everybody's interest, but it didn't need to be public. It could have been handled in house. It didn't need to be slinging mud around and shit. We don't need to do that. So I'll let Tim extrapolate on that a little bit more here.
You want me to roll out for you, Jay?
Yeah, sure. I don't know what I did here.
But that's where programs like yours.
Wrong one.
Wrong one.
I also want to say too that, look, with what's happened with Project Veritas had me actually very worried. James O'Keefe, we haven't heard from him. We know what's going on. We've had the drama with the Daily Wire and Steven Crowder. Obviously, there was drama involving me, which I feel like all of this, it's getting a little out of hand. It's getting a little crazy, especially considering this other story that we have. 2 Republicans in New Jersey were just killed in the past week. Now, one was by a coworker. We're not entirely sure what the motive was. Another individual was targeted, this woman, in her vehicle. And that made me kind of take stock of everything and just say, okay, look, man, we've got to make sure that at the very least, if we have differences, we're unified in what these problems really are, because it seems like this is really, really bad. Considering Project Veritas recently did one of the biggest exposés of their existence with James O'Keefe, and then almost immediately after, we see him get ousted in some kind of coup attempt, or I should say outright coup. And at least that's what I'm hearing from sources in New York media. Seems like a coup at Project Veritas. Yeah, I think we've got to make sure, at the very least, I ask, and that we focus. So I'm going to say this outright. For anybody who's upset with me, I apologize for being brash and crass. I said I wasn't gonna, But I'm genuinely freaked out watching what's happening with Veritas, seeing the infighting between Crowder and Daily Wire, and then now this kind of makes me feel that, look, I'm not perfect and y'all can still be mad at me, but I don't want to engage in any fighting that's going to cause us to actually lose this thing in the long run. Because it's not a good thing. You know, last night we had a great show with members of Congress. We got to keep this energy up, and we got to make sure that even if we disagree on certain things, we're focused in the same direction towards making things better and fighting for the values that we have.
A little bit of humble pie from Mr. Tim Pool. That was good. That was good. I watched that.
Especially the day after that event, to come in the next day without a big head. He gained a lot of respect from me.
Yeah,
Because
I
a lot
agree.
of people would have been
actually.
like,
Yeah.
fuck, look what I did last night. Fuck you guys. No,
No,
he didn't do that.
humble pie right there, and that's good to see from a guy like that. He could have been a completely he could have came at us with a completely different approach and a completely different attitude, and he did not. So I appreciate that. So everybody,
And it wasn't a
there's-
narcissistic apology either.
No,
It wasn't
no.
like I said sorry, so you guys have to shut up. That was like, you know what? I'm sorry. There's nothing I can really do to fix it.
No.
And you have every right to be pissed off at me.
Absolutely.
That's a real apology.
That was sincere, and I
Yeah.
think that goes without saying. It's pretty easy to see that in
Yeah.
the video, and if you follow Tim Pool at all, you'll know when he's sincere and when he's not, and he was sincere there.
Mhm.
I've watched him for a while now. I think that's going to do it for us tonight, folks. It's been a slice. We are
We've said it all.
we are all out of things to say. I think that it stands to reason that you guys should find your friends, find your like-minded people. Like Jay says, go to a bar once a week, have a beer, and talk about what you feel is going on in the world, what is right and what is wrong. Don't be too judgmental. Be patient and be, show some humility. And most importantly, remember that somewhere in this world is, a place that you will find your friends and you will find your like-minded people. Don't give up. Don't feel like you're an outcast. Don't feel like you're alienated because you don't believe that children should be exposed to pornographic material in grade school. You're perfectly, able to have that thought. And you're perfectly able, and it's perfectly acceptable to have that thought and that stance. Don't let your beliefs vilify you because somebody said they should, or because the current Marxist view of politics says they should be, you should be vilified for your views, because you shouldn't. Your views are your own. Freedom of expression still exists, however fleetingly. So hang on to it. Be good to each other, and much love, people. We're out.